Greetings, fellow humans. Katrina here. Quick disclaimer, I'm a professional, not your professional. Nothing I'm about to say should be taken as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. Disclaimer over. So I thought I'd talk today about what I don't know about specifiers for depressive disorder. I've talked a bit about major depression in the past, some of the bipolar depression, and then there are specifiers for depressive disorders, including some of those unspecified depressive disorders, unspecified mood disorders. But the specifiers specifically for the depressive disorders can be found in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, text revision. This is an amazing book. It is a great resource, not a label maker, but more of a guide to treatment. And so specifiers for depressive disorder includes if with anxious distress. Well, let me give the overview. So they've got anxious distress, mixed features, melancholic features, atypical features, psychotic features, catatonia, peripartum onset, and I do believe that's it. It goes from page 210 to page 214. Oh, it says with a seasonal pattern as well. And then you want to specify if whether in partial remission or full remission. Remember, if anyone is ever diagnosed with a mental health disorder, it doesn't mean that it is persistent forever. Things can go into remission the same way something like cancer can go into remission, diabetes can get under control, and that kind of thing. So here we go with anxious distress. Anxious distress is defined as the presence of at least two of the following symptoms during the majority of the days of the current major depressive episode, or the most recent major depressive episode if major depressive episode is currently in partial or full remission, or current persistent depressive disorder. 1, feeling keyed up or tense. 2, feeling unusually restless. 3, difficulty concentrating because of worry. 4, fear that something awful may happen. 5 is feeling that the individual might lose control of him or herself. Specify current severity. It says mild would be 2 of those 5 symptoms, moderate would be 3 symptoms, moderate to severe would be 4 or 5 symptoms, and severe would be 4 or 5 symptoms with motor agitation. That motor agitation is usually noticeable by others. Note, anxious distress has been noted as a prominent feature of both bipolar and major depressive disorder in primary care and special mental health settings. High levels of anxiety have been associated with higher suicide risk, longer duration of illness, and greater likelihood of treatment non-response. As a result, it is clinically useful to specify accurately the presence of severity levels of anxious distress for treatment planning and monitoring of response to treatment. So then it goes on to say with mixed features. So with mixed features, they have A, B, C, and D, and under A, we got 7. So here we go. A. At least 3 of the following manic/hypomanic symptoms are present during the majority of the days of the current major depressive episode or the most recent major depressive episode if major depressive disorder is currently in partial or full remission. So here are the 7. 1, elevated expansive mood. 2, inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, thinking one's better than others. 3, but more than like a little bit, like a lot. That grandiosity is like a big, some people express feeling like a god. Number 3 says more talkative than usual or pressure to keep talking. 4, flight of ideas or subjective experience that thoughts are racing. And flight of ideas is kind of like flitting from one thought to another. Sometimes they're connected, sometimes there's not. Circumstantial, I believe, is where it goes around in a circle, where you have a point and you loop back around to it. I believe I could have that definition wrong. Don't quote me on that. 5, increase in energy or goal-directed activity, either socially, at work or school, or sexually. 6, increased or excessive involvement in activities that have a high potential for painful consequences. For example, engaging in unrestrained buying sprees, sexual indiscretions, or foolish business investments. 7, decreased need for sleep, feeling rested despite sleeping less than usual, to be contrasted with insomnia. B says, mixed symptoms are observable by others and represent a change from the person's usual behavior. Observable by others means other people can see the difference in you and what might be going on. C, for individuals whose symptoms meet full criteria for either mania or hypomania, the diagnosis should be bipolar 1 or bipolar 2 disorder, respectively. Bipolar 1 has full-blown mania, and bipolar 2 has hypomania, or a person can become hypomanic at times. D, the mixed symptoms are not attributable to these physiological effects of a substance, for example, a drug of abuse, a medication, or other treatment. There's a note here that says mixed features associated with major depressive episode have been found to be a significant risk factor for the development of bipolar 1 or 2 disorder. As a result, it is clinically useful to note that the presence of this specifier for treatment planning and monitoring of response to treatment. And then it goes on from the anxious distress. We've done that. We've done the mixed features. And now we're going into with melancholic features. It has A and B. And if we go on to the next page, it switches to another one. So we got A and B. A has 2, B has 6. So A says one of the following is present during the most severe period of the current major depressive episode, or the most recent major depressive episode if major depressive disorder is currently in partial or full remission. 1, loss of pleasure in all or almost all activities. 2, lack of reactivity to pleasurable stimuli. It says in parentheses, does not feel much better even temporarily when something good happens. B, 3 or more of the following. 1, a distinct quality of depressed mood characterized by profound despondency, despair, and or moroseness, or by so-called empty mood. 2, depression that is regularly worse in the morning. 3, early morning awakening at least 2 hours before usual awakening. If you're getting up at 6 normally and then you start waking up at 4 a.m., that's 2 hours earlier. 4, marked psychomotor agitation or retardation. 5, significant anorexia or weight loss. 6, excessive or inappropriate guilt. So there are 6 of those. You only need 3 out of those to have the melancholic features. And it says, note, the specifier with melancholic features is applied if these features are present at the most severe stage of the episode. There is a near complete absence of the capacity for pleasure, not merely a diminution. A guideline for evaluating the lack of reactivity of mood is that even highly desired events are not associated with marked brightening of mood. Either mood does not brighten at all, or it brightens only partially, for example, 20 to 40% of normal for only minutes at a time. The distinct quality of mood that is characteristic of the with melancholic features specifier is experienced used quantitatively different from that during a non-melancholic depressive episode. A depressed mood is described as merely more severe, longer lasting, or persistent without a reason is not considered a distinct in quality. Psychomotor changes are nearly always present and are observable by others. Melancholic features exhibit only a modest tendency to repeat across episodes in the same individual. They are more frequent in inpatients as opposed to outpatients, are less likely to occur in milder than in more severe major depressive episodes, and are more likely to occur in individuals with psychotic features. And then it goes on to discuss with atypical features. And so we're on 212 of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, text revision 5 TR. Okay, so with atypical features, the specifier is applied when these features predominate during the majority of the days and the current major depressive episode or the most recent depressive episode, if it's, again, in partial or full remission, or current persistent depressive disorder. A, mood reactivity. For example, mood brightens in response to actual or potential positive events, looking forward to something. B, 2 or more of the following. 1, significant weight gain or increase in appetite. 2, hypersomnia. 3, and I want to say hypersomnia is 12 or more hours. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. 3, leadened paralysis. For example, heavy leadened feelings in arms or legs. 4, a longstanding pattern of interpersonal rejection sensitivity, not limited to episodes of mood disturbance, that results in significant social or occupational impairment. C, criteria are not met for with melancholic features or with catatonia during the same episode. There is a big note on this one that says atypical depression has historical significance, i.e., atypical in contradistinction to the more classical agitated endogenous presentations of depression that were the norm when depression was rarely diagnosed in outpatients and almost never in adolescents or young adults, and today does not connote an uncommon or unusual clinical presentation as the term might imply. So atypical does not mean weird or wrong or abnormal in any way. It's just an uncommon or unusual presentation. Or it's not I said that backwards. It's not an unusual or uncommon presentation as the term might imply by atypical. Atypical kind of sounds like that, right? It says mood reactivity is the capacity to be cheered up when presented with positive events. For example, visiting children, compliments from others. Mood may become euphemic, not sad, for extended periods of time if the external circumstances remain favorable. Increased appetite may be manifested by an obvious increase in food intake or by weight gain. Hypersomnia may include either an extended period of nighttime sleep or daytime napping that totals at least, here we go, we got the hypersomnia, at least 10 hours of sleep per day, or at least 2 hours more than when not depressed. Leaden paralysis is defined as feeling heavy, leadened, or weighted down, usually in the arms or legs. The sensation is generally present for at least an hour a day, but often lasts for many hours at a time. Unlike other atypical features, pathological sensitivity is perceived interpersonal rejection as a trait that has an early onset and persists throughout most of adult life. Rejection sensitivity occurs when a person is and is not depressed, though it may be exacerbated during depressive periods. And then it goes on to say with psychotic features, delusions and or hallucinations are present at any time in the current major depressive episode or the most recent if it's in partial or full remission. If psychotic features are present, specify if mood congruent or mood incongruent. With mood congruent psychotic features, the content of the delusions and hallucinations is consistent with the typical depressive themes of personal inadequacy, guilt, disease, death, nihilism, or deserved punishment. With mood incongruent psychotic features, the content of the delusions and hallucinations do not involve typical depressive themes of personal inadequacy, guilt, death, disease, nihilism, or deserved punishment, or the content is a mixture of mood incongruent and mood congruent themes. And then it specifies with catatonia, this specifier is applied to the current major depressive episode or recent major depressive episode if it's in partial or full remission, if catatonic features are present during most of the episode. See criteria for catatonia associated with a mental disorder in the chapter Schizophrenia Spectrum or Other Psychotic Disorders. Then it goes on to with peripartum onset. The specifier is applied to the current major depressive episode or the most recent, again, if it's in partial or full remission, if onset of mood symptoms occurs during pregnancy. Anything with like a partum in it, postpartum, peripartum, those are all around pregnancy. So peripartum onset occurs during pregnancy or in the 4 weeks following delivery. Note, mood episodes can have their onset during pregnancy or postpartum. Note, about 50% of postpartum major depressive episodes begin prior to delivery. Thus, these episodes are referred to collectively as peripartum episodes. Between conception and birth, about 9% of women will experience a major depressive episode. The best estimate for prevalence of major depressive episode between birth and 12 months postpartum is just below 7%. So postpartum onset mood episodes can either present with or without psychotic features. Infanticide, a rare occurrence, is most often associated with postpartum psychotic episodes that are characterized by command hallucinations to kill the infant or delusions that the infant is possessed. But psychotic symptoms can also occur in severe postpartum mood episodes without such specific delusions or hallucinations. Postpartum mood, major depressive or manic, episodes with psychotic features appear to occur from 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000 deliveries and may be more common in, this is a big word, primiparous women. The risk of postpartum episodes with psychotic features is particularly increased for women with prior postpartum psychotic mood episodes, but is also elevated for those with a prior history of depressive or bipolar, especially bipolar 1 disorder, and those with a family history of bipolar disorders. Once a woman has had a postpartum episode with psychotic features, the risk of reoccurrence with each subsequent delivery is between 30 and 50%. Postpartum episodes must be differentiated from delirium occurring in the postpartum period, which is distinguished by a fluctuating level of awareness or attention. Peripartum onset depressive episode must be distinguished from the much more common maternity blues, or what is known in lay terms as baby blues. Maternity blues is not considered to be a mental disorder and is characterized by sudden changes in mood. For example, the sudden onset of tearfulness in the absence of depression that do not cause functional impairment and that are likely caused by physiological changes occurring after delivery. It is temporary and self-limited, typically improving quickly within a week and without need for treatment. Other symptoms of maternity blues include sleep disturbance and confusion that can occur shortly after delivery. Perinatal women may be at higher risk for depressive disorders due to thyroid abnormalities, as well as other medical conditions that can cause depressive symptoms. If the depressive symptoms are judged to be due to another medical condition related to the perinatal period, depressive disorder due to another medical condition should be diagnosed instead of a major depressive episode with peripartum onset. Then it goes on with seasonal pattern on page 214 of the DSM-5 TR. The specifier applies to recurrent major depressive disorder. It's got A, B, C, and D, and then it has some specifiers. So A says, it says with the seasonal pattern, this specifier applies to the recurrent major depressive disorder. A, there has been a regular temporal relationship between the onset of major depressive episodes in major depressive disorder and a particular time of year. For example, it can happen in the fall or in the winter, sometimes even in the summer. Note, do not include such cases where there is an obvious effect of seasonally related psychosocial stressors. For example, regularly being unemployed every winter. Some people have seasonal work where they only work in the summertime. B, full remissions also occur at a characteristic time of year. For example, depression disappears in the spring. C, in the last 2 years, major depressive episodes have occurred that demonstrate the temporal seasonal relationships defined above, and no non-seasonal major depressive episodes have occurred during that same period. D, seasonal major depressive episodes, as described above, substantially outnumber the non-seasonal major depressive episodes that may have occurred over the individual's lifetime. Note, the specifier with seasonal pattern can apply to the pattern of major depressive episodes in major depressive disorder recurrent. The essential feature is the onset and the remission of major depressive episodes at characteristic times of year. In most cases, the episodes begin in fall or winter and remit in spring. Less commonly, there may be some recurrent summer depressive episodes. This pattern of onset and remission of episodes must have occurred during at least a 2-year period without any non-seasonal episodes occurring during this period. In addition, the seasonal depressive episodes must substantially outnumber any non-seasonal depressive episodes over the individual's lifetime. And it does not apply, the specifier does not apply in those situations where the pattern is better explained by seasonally linked psychosocial stressors. Say that 5 times fast. For example, seasonal unemployment or a school schedule. People who work within the school are only employed during the school year unless they have another job outside of the school schedule. Major depressive episodes that occur in a seasonal pattern are often characterized by loss of energy, hypersomnia, overeating, weight gain, and a craving for carbohydrates. The prevalence of winter type seasonal pattern appears to vary with latitude, age, and sex. Prevalence increases with higher latitudes. Age is also a strong predictor of seasonality, with younger persons at higher risk for winter depressive episodes. So then the last specifiers, we have 2 specifiers. One is whether or not it's in partial or full remission, and the other is mild, moderate, or severe. So it says in partial remission, Symptoms of the immediately previous major depressive episode are present, but full criteria are not met. Or if there's a period lasting less than 2 months without any significant symptoms of major depressive episode following the end of such an episode. Or 2, in full remission. During the past 2 months, no significant signs or symptoms of the disturbance were present. Lastly, it says to specify the current severity. Severity is based on the number of criterion symptoms, the severity of those symptoms, and the degree of functional disability. Remember, I said we got mild, moderate, and severe. So mild, it says few, if any, symptoms in excess of those required to make the diagnosis are present. The intensity of the symptoms is distressing but manageable, and the symptoms result in minor impairment in social or occupational functioning. Moderate, the number of symptoms, intensity of symptoms, and/or functional impairment are between those specified for mild and severe. Then severe says the number of symptoms is substantially in excess of that required to make the diagnosis. The intensity of these symptoms is seriously distressing and unmanageable, and the symptoms markedly interfere with social and occupational functioning. Some people can't work. So that's what I got on the things that I don't know about specifiers of depressive disorders. If you liked today's episode and you want to click the button to support the show on the site, you absolutely can. Remember, I appreciate each and every one of you simply for existing.